Hello once again. Welcome back to the Cactus Atlas. On our last video, we departed from Great Basin National Park but didn't make it far before our first stop, the Baker Archaeological Site. We reflected back on the differing landscapes and envisioned what the native Fremont culture site would have looked like. However, it is time to make some distance and move on to our next stop of the day. I am back. Got some footage of the road, of course, between the Baker Archaeological Site and we're only 15 minutes away from Pioche, Nevada, an old west mining town. But I wouldn't call it necessarily, from what I've seen of it, a ghost town, because I think a lot of people live there today, but probably a small town, of course, but definitely goes back to the Wild West days. And this town, my understanding, was one of those rough towns. Lots of murder associated with it, all of the kind of stuff you tend to think of when we think of the Old West. Which oftentimes devolves more into legend than not, but this place, based on my quick research, does seem like it had some bloody history. And while we're still kind of approaching our destination, just a reminder, as I've been saying at a lot of our historic locations, on this particular trip, I've been focusing more on camp view and documenting campgrounds and making Cactus Atlas videos all along the way. Really just documenting my experience casually. So I'm not really prepared to give you a really deep history lesson about Pioche or anything like that. Probably at best Wikipedia level knowledge. I'm playing a tourist today, as I have been the last 3 weeks. Just checking a place out for the first time. I've never been there before. It'll be my first trip to Pioche, as far as I know. So I think the furthest I've come up this way has been Cathedral Gorge, which is, I think, about 20 miles south, if I am not mistaken, from Pioche. But I am excited to see the town, though. I do like this stuff. So I'm hoping maybe along the way, maybe they'll have some, I don't know, maybe they got a museum, maybe they have displays, I don't know. We're gonna find out here very soon. So about 7 minutes or 7.5 miles to go, and I see on the side of the mountain off to the left a little bit a bunch of buildings and things, making me think that's the town of Pioche, but that seems closer than 7 miles away to me right now. But distances are very deceiving out here in the Great Basin with these long stretching roads. So if that's not Pioche, I'm guessing it's on the other side of this mountain somewhere, but something tells me it is. But we'll be finding out here shortly. That's why I love these regions, though. It's just things stretch on like that, and you can see for many, many, many miles. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're making our final approach into Pioche, and the current temperature is 82 degrees at 9:30 in the morning. It might be a very uncomfortably warm night for me at Cathedral Gorge, I guess. But getting my first looks at, I guess, the modern town, modern residents living downhill here from this point. I see a Sinclair gas station on my map. I see a road called Frenchy Road. Pioche, the town, the town was named after was French. Time to slow down. The speed limit just shifted to 25 miles an hour. It looks like it's got a decent amount of residents. More than I was thinking this was going to be, actually. There's quite a bit downhill from here. But I take it the old historic part is uphill here. We're at an elevation of 6,060 feet. 6060. So at this point, I'm just looking for a place to park that's near any sites of historic interest. We'll see what we can find. There's the Sinclair gas station. Gas is a lot cheaper than it was in Baker. I think Baker was kind of that one stop you had access to was kind of taken
in 800 feet,
advantage
you will arrive at your destination.
There's a map of Pioche. Just looking for some Old West looking buildings here, and I think we may have found some. This looks like the downtown area. Look way up on the hill. Look at all of like the waste rock piles up there from mining.
You have arrived.
That's really cool. There's some parking back here in these back parking lots, so that's grocery store parking only though. This is cool. There's some really neat old looking buildings here indeed. So we're just gonna get out, we're gonna park, and we're gonna walk around. Looks like there's plenty of parking here on the main street. Very neat. I don't see any restrictions around parking here, so we're gonna do it. Oh, I think I'm good. All right, guys, let's go walk the streets of Pioche. Let's just probably walk up and down Main Street, Old Pioche, and oh, there's the Lincoln County Historical Museum also. There's a museum here, which would be kind of neat to peek in. I don't know if it's free or not, or even open at this point. It's a Monday, I believe, too, so I expect it's going to be pretty barren. All right, here we are in Pioche, Nevada. So the town's got a lot of character. I like the old buildings here, and I'm gonna start with my little Wikipedia level knowledge. We'll walk up to the top of the street and we'll just kind of work our way down and check things out. So looking at Wikipedia on this, reading the brief history of it, the town really got started I think in 1864 when they found silver out here and mining began. But the problem was a lot of the local indigenous people that lived out here, the natives, Indians, would raid. There were some massacres, a lot of bloodshed. So it was a really rough start to this town, and it was a very dangerous place to be back in those times in the 1860s. And then by 1868, I think, is when Mr. Pioche, the Frenchman, came in here and I think bought the town essentially, and the town was named after him. But by the 1870s, it sounds like this was, if not, it might have been the most important silver town in the state of Nevada at the time. So really important in mining history in Nevada state history. And you see evidence of mining all around, up on the hills here. I'm not really sure too much about if they have any old mines and things you can visit, but I think I see an old rusty head frame maybe up on that hill up there. But it's very eerily quiet out here. There's really not much activity. Wikipedia also points out that due to the remoteness of this region, that contributed to the rough and tumble reputation this town got. It's supposed to be a very violent place, and according to Wikipedia, one of the roughest towns in the Old West. Here's a really pretty display of mine carts coming out of an old mine with a cascade in front of it. Really neat display, celebrating the town's history. So yeah, you had the remoteness, you had the danger of being attacked from the local populations, the natives. And then once more settlers came in, the problem became there's a lot of confusion, I guess, over where actual claims were supposed to be. So people started hiring guards, and then violence ensued there. People started to murder each other over mining claims. So it seems like you have all of the elements of a really rough claim jumping type of a old west mining town out here. And I think for our tour today, those are the basics, I think, of the old history here. But just know that we are walking on the ground where all of those dramas played out, and some probably made fortunes and some probably found their end, and then others would have just worked the mines and toiled and probably spent all their money in brothels and saloons as most probably did back then. So we're gonna work our way down here, and I don't know if we'll see anything that has dates on the buildings that indicate if they're, from the era that we're discussing or added later. Sometimes you might see historic plaques, but I'm not quite sure what we're gonna find here. There's a sign. As I travel and we go to places like Bannock and all these other Old West towns, it's sometimes hard to know what's from the Old West times and what's from more modern times. But one thing I'm learning as often as towns modernize, the streets got a lot wider. So my guess is that a lot of the original stuff, wooden buildings, probably burnt down, and as things modernized, it probably widened up, and but still, like, towns like this have a lot of character. Don't know much about these either. Like, these look pretty, they look older, but I'm skeptical that they're going to be from the earliest times of this town. But here's something called Oddfellows and Rebecca's. It was first erected in 1872. So here's one that takes a claim to go back to the era of interest. Anyway, I can buy it. The building seems to have that look of being that old. And they've added their own flair here, I guess, in modern times to celebrate the town's history. I'm trying to zoom in. I don't know if you can see way up on there. I see a lot of old, like an old head frame and what looks like old wooden mining stuff. So I don't know if there's something, activity up there today. Is that something you can visit? Maybe we'll try to swing by up there and see if that's like a thing that tourists can go check out or not. But that actually looks pretty cool to me, whatever it is. Definitely looks like an old mine. I do want to head down there. There's some old theaters and really cool vintage looking things. Once again, not sure we're talking about Old West old, but we'll kind of swing by the Lincoln County Historical Museum, and I'm doubtful it's going to be open, but I haven't seen any plaques on any buildings though that are like National Register of Historic Places, but we'll keep an eye out. Sounds like they're doing work in there. I just got access into the museum. That was really nice. It's nice and dark in here, but this is cool. specifically, there's a contractor here doing work in here, friendliest guy ever. And he saw me taking interest in stuff and decided to let me, you know, come in and poke around in here and check out the displays. And he's a wealth of information. He's told me a lot. I'm thinking I may be mispronouncing the town name too. I'll confirm with him. I've been saying Pioche, and I think it's Pioche. Like not a sh, but a ch at the end of it. But this is a fantastic little museum. He's been busy, you know, with his drill and stuff like that, so I don't want to bother him, but that's why I haven't really been talking. But I think he had to go outside to check, to take a call. So I'm kind of wandering around in here in the dark almost. But wow, that is awesome. Guys, he's my new hero. So I know it's kind of hard for me to read and see, you know, everything in here, you know, since the lights are off, but I'm just kind of doing scanning and showing you guys this museum. It's full of artifacts from various eras. Absolutely fantastic. I think he said we could probably get up to that head frame up there, that old wooden head frame. He says he sees people go up there, so I believe him. But so nice. That's why I like small towns. People are much more friendly and polite in places like this. Some currency there. Oh, that's Confederate money, I think. I'm looking for a date. Doesn't it say the Confederacy on there? Probably 1860s would be my guess. You got all these old, like, look at all these old spoons and padlocks. And he kind of showed me the gun display too. There's some really cool old firearms here. And in the back too, that you could check out. I used to be in a band. I played trombone. But old instruments. Doesn't say the date on that thing. It's a cornet used by C.A. Thompson. Not really sure who that is, but the Pioche Town Band. So maybe not, probably from the early 1900s, I'm guessing some of this stuff is. Old ammunition boxes. A corn sheller. So yeah, that was really, really cool. I probably spent more time not filming and reading, but that was neat. There's an old $1 million hotel around the corner here. It's probably closed, but I think I might see it on the Pioche skyline. Oh, I meant to ask him how to properly pronounce this. Look here at the gas station too. You got an old ore bucket. These look really neat and vintage to me. This hotel, saloon, and then a theater down the way. We're gonna cross the street and I'll get a better look at these head on. But the Gem Theater, gempioche.com. I can't really tell you too much about the theater, but it looks like a classic to me. Oh, look at that. There's an old opera house that's now a tourism center. I'm here, like I said, I'm here on a Monday morning pretty early, so it's probably got a lot more people wandering around and hanging out on weekends, I imagine, or as the day progresses. But yeah, you could definitely see the age in a lot of these buildings. think that might be what he referred to as the $1 Million Hotel down this ways. So this is an old Masonic temple, the Pioche Masonic Temple, 1873, one of Nevada's oldest. And I guess it ran through 1973. You could definitely look at the bottom of the wall. It just seems kind of like askew. I don't know if it was designed that way or if it's settled, the foundation is settled like that. That's really neat. A nice little vantage point also of that main street where the old Thompson's Opera House is, old Ford City Garage, and a bunch of other various, probably a mixture of more modern and old. Yeah, and just look up on that hill too. It's full of just waste rock or tailings from all the mining around here. It's like half the mountain is up there in those piles. Some really neat old signs out here. And other exhibits. It's kind of hidden away. Oh, wow. This is really cool back here. I don't know if any of this stuff is original or what, or just kind of for tourists or not. But it's a really cool display regardless. Kind of got freaked out for a second. There's a face in that window. Smells like old wood though. You can really smell it. Love that smell. Let's see if there's anything else up this way. I think there's just modern homes over there. So let's head back down. I have an idea. I'm gonna leave Main Street. I mean, almost everything's closed, except we got that exclusive access into the into that museum back there. That really made my day, actually. That guy was so cool, so nice. The chances that I didn't really reveal what I'm doing, I'm shy about that. I don't really talk about the Cactus Atlas. He didn't ask. Otherwise, I would have told him. Should have now. I kind of regret it. I should be like, hey, he's not in my video, though. I didn't film him, but, you know, there's good people in the world. Like really good people, and that's an example of one. You know, someone that kind of observed me wandering around filming, you know, noticed I had an interest in things and said, come check out, you know, this. So I wanted to see if I can get back up here, but I see a truck blocking the street. So we're gonna just kind of do I guess as a dead end anyway. I'm just trying to see if we can get up to these that old head frame up there. And I saw another, what looked like a big ore bin up here. So we'll just kind of do a sitting on my butt in the truck exploration of the town, maybe. Although I think I'm technically leaving town. I'm just trying to see if there's a road that seems likely that it would go back up by that mine. But you see straight ahead, that looks like something. Or I'm looking for a good place to go to get airborne and I could fly. But he said that he does see people. He thinks it's okay to go up there. He sees people wander about up there, but I'm not quite sure how that's gonna go. But there's a historic sign here. Actually, there's a big pit right there, a big mine shaft, I think, right off the road. Okay, so there's a little sign, a dedication to Pioche. I'm gonna say Pioche in honor of how he pronounced it. I'm sure that's how it's said, so not Pioche. I don't know how, like the proper French pronunciation, Mr. Pioche. Might be, who knows, who cares? Oh, there's the tram, okay. He told me there's a tram that basically goes all the way down that hill. You could see it right across the way there. So this might actually be, I don't see any power lines or obstructions, but I'm like, do I get up, but I say we do this. I say let's just get out on foot. I think there's a sign actually over there. It's probably part of that tram system where I presume they would bring buckets of ore probably to this thing, I'm guessing. Either dumped it here or maybe that housed some kind of system that ran the pulleys and everything that ran the tram. I don't know, but that's really cool. We're gonna start over here. We'll see if we can peek down that big mine shaft there. But there's a sign, a memorial to the town of Pioche. I think I was correct earlier. I think I quoted 1864. So silver ore was discovered in this range of mountains in 1864, but it wasn't until 1869 until the town of Pioche was founded. And it became a wild rush of prospectors and fortune seekers, and it had a reputation in the 1870s for tough gunmen and bitter lawsuits. So we were talking about like all of the, probably some claim jumping, people trying to make claims on others' claims and all that kind of stuff. But basically, kind of a summary of what I told you, I think. I'm probably not going to get close enough to the edge here to see down in there, to see if there's anything worth seeing anyway. I don't think there is. It looked like it may have been filled in. We'll walk around this way. Try to get up a little higher. Unsafe mine. I don't know, I'm just stretching my arm out right. I don't know if you guys can see anything. I'll have to review the footage later and take a look. But downhill there is that main street that we were just on. I actually see an adit, it looks like up there, with a small pile coming out of it. I wonder if that was just like a prospector's hole. It doesn't look like anything major was going on up there, but I bet all over this landscape is probably mine after mine. I mean, once again, just look up the hill and look at all of those piles of all that waste rock that was pulled out of the various mines around here. The guts of the earth. I'm almost a little ashamed I didn't spend more time researching this more, specifically researching, like looking at maps, trying to figure out, like, how do I get up to the head frame, for example. But once again, if you've been following my journey, what I've been up to, I think I should be easily forgiven based on the scope of this insane scope of what I've actually seemed to be pulling off here. So this here is actually a relic from the 1920s that we're looking at. It is an aerial tramway, and basically what it's saying is it was mainly gravity fed, but there is a 5 horsepower motor. I'm gonna guess this little structure down here is part of that. You can actually see the cables on those big, I don't know what the proper term is, gears or whatever those would be, but this is huge. So I'm guessing, so basically the gist of it is they would put ore into the tram cars, which you could still see some hanging from the cables, and then they would transport the ore to a mill where it would have been further processed. So basically it sounds like the weight of the ore kind of on the cable system and gravity would help pull empty buckets back to the bin. That is an impressive structure though. When I kind of like seek out old mining history like this one's a big one. Here's another fantastic view looking down towards the main street. I didn't catch the name of the street, maybe it's Main Street, but it's gonna be right down towards the center of the screen. Trying to zoom in a little bit. Like, I'm using the camera that's not the best for that, but hopefully you can see some of those buckets kind of just hanging on up there. And assuming they're from the era, I don't know how long have those actually been hanging out. At this point, we're talking like over 100 years old, this stuff. I don't know why I got so fascinated about this particular type of thing, like my old mining history, and I think about that sometimes. And I really don't know where that comes from, because I'm not from a family that had anything to do with mining. I don't know anybody really that's into it. My wife Amy's into it, she likes it. But it's just something magical, I think, about man extracting like rock basically from the earth and then separating out metal and other various minerals and things from the earth and transforming it into something useful. Something about that process is part of my fascination, I would say. Which even, I guess, if you want to take modern mining into consideration, I still find that aspect of it fascinating. And then sometimes I wonder, is it because, as a child, like going to like amusement parks, to be honest, as silly as this sounds, I always liked the Old West themed areas of any amusement park I went to. They're always my favorite. I guess growing up in an era where they were playing reruns more often of things like The Good and the Bad and the Ugly, or A Fistful of Dollars, A Few Dollars More, like old spaghetti westerns, the aesthetic around it. I know a lot of the, Hollywood glamorized a lot of things. I know the reality is probably something different, but that's probably part of it too. Just something that maybe connects with good memories, but all of that, maybe kind of growing up in that time where a lot of those old westerns that a lot of our audience probably know better than I do, the town I grew up, like we didn't have cable TV when I was growing up, and all you had was like the public channels, and they would just show reruns of old movies like that. So that probably feeds into my fascination with it. But I think because of that, one thing of interest is that it's easy and I'm learning more as I go along, but if I hadn't read that sign, I might have surmised, is this thing from the 1800s? And I probably do that a lot, when the reality is a lot of the stuff we see today, the actual real deal, it's harder and harder to find, especially things made of wood, old towns and stuff. So like when I'm walking around the streets of old, like Pioche down there, like it's hard to discern, okay, what's an actual building from that era and what is, from, I don't want to say modern eras, because a lot of it could be from like the 20s, 30s, 40s, and those have a vintage feel to them, and I like that stuff too. But what I guess I'm saying is my fascination, with movies and, the Old West theme park stuff, it kind of muddies up the truth a bit sometimes. And earlier on in my wanderings about, I think I oftentimes probably misdate things a lot and think they're older than they probably actually are. But then sometimes you do find the real deals. And that's the most exciting thing when you do, finally. Yeah, the gentleman in the museum said something about $1 million hotel. He's like, have you seen that yet? And he said sometimes, I don't know if it's the owner or who, if someone's working in there, said they might let you wander around in that thing too. And I saw that Masonic temple, and I see where that is. We kind of stopped short, but I see an older structure kind of in the direction the guy was talking about that looks like it's made of wood and pretty dilapidated. So I'm wondering if that is what he was talking about. I'm embarrassed to say I'm not really familiar with all the details to know what it is or was. But anyway, so neat. That's why when I also get further and further into this YouTube, I'm still gonna call it a hobby. Let's face it. I can't afford to do this full time. But I think that's why I get more and more obsessed with like finding the objective truth about things and deciphering, you know, separating legend from fact. And I find more and more, like the town of Tombstone, Arizona is a great example. I think most of what we know comes from the movies. In fact, I know this to be a fact. Even like, you know, things like I don't believe the duel between Johnny Ringo and Doc Holliday actually ever happened. I'm skeptical that they even knew who each other were, to be honest with you. If you start reading more about the real history about these people and like what actually went on there. But the difficulty is it seems like when you start to uncover more truths, it really upsets some people because they don't want to let go of the cool story, the fantasy, basically. And I get that too, though. It's one part sometimes disappointment, but seeking out truths about things, the actual age of buildings, things like that, I think it's important to do, but it's a weird hobby, I guess. You probably don't want to know projects that I have in mind for the future that are gonna really make some people sad, probably, if I can debunk some of these legends that people just accept as fact these days. I did a really dumb, boneheaded thing. I left my GoPros running the whole time I'm out there running my mouth. So like ran for like, since I think I've been running it since I left the street down there, so I can't delete the clip, but most of it is gonna be worthless. Then this thing overheated because it's been sitting in the sun while it was recording and ate up my battery, and it probably ate up like 18 minutes of worthless footage that I can't really delete, and I'm running low on SD card space. Duh, and duh. But I do want to make one more pass through town, see if that building I see down there is what he referred to as the $1 Million Hotel. See, I was not kidding you. This is kind of the blow through, quick and dirty tour down here on this main street. Let's see what it says. Oh, what do you know about that? It's called Main Street. I was right. And that's usually what they're called in towns like this. But we'll do another pass. So up on the right will be the Lincoln County Historical Museum, where the gentleman let me poke around. There he is right there. The guy in the gray shirt with a hat. I honor you. That was the guy. I think from when we were up high, I think this building I saw down past here was this old wooden building. Yeah, I'm seeing it coming into view, and really just curious to do a drive-by here and see if it looks. Yeah, you see that up on the left there? Next to the Sinclair station. Oh yeah, that looks like a classic. Here's what I could have used earlier, I guess, but it's a map of the town. I think it has got modern businesses mixed in. Let's see if I can find what I'm looking for here. I think there's the $1 Million Courthouse. Maybe that's what he was actually talking about, not the hotel. I think that was my bad. But it's right next to this. I think the Motherlode Motel. I think we're here. Yep, and there's I think, isn't that the Masons there? Yeah, that's right. We came up, I think we just went from up this way. There's the museum, and then I made a left and came up here, and I'm parked like right here. This hotel though looks definitely like an old one. Windows are busted in. We'll walk up here and see what the sign says. This hotel was built in 1895. So here's an 1800s original building. And I would say I agree. It has that 1800s fallen apart. So the hotel was built in 1895 by the Ely Valley Mines to house their guests and lay claim to such overnight guests as Herbert Hoover, many U.S. senators, and some Nevada governors. And this is the old $1 Million Courthouse. It sounds like this was designed in 1872. Designed. I don't know when they completed building it, but I'll have to reread that in a minute. I think it did cost $1 million to complete, though, is why it's called that. It's open. That scared me. I thought that was a real person at first. It's basically another museum. It's actually nice and cool in here, too. The assessor's office. Can't go upstairs. This is a neat little looking office. Look at all these old books. Oh, the smell. It smells like a library, but like, you know, the old smell of old books is always one of my favorite smells. This hotel, though, I love. Something about it. So I know I'm rushing this. I kind of have to because of the time and the plan. Still got much more to do on this episode, but I feel like for a scouting mission we did pretty good. I'm pleased with the quick blow-through tour here of Pioche. Give one more look at this beautiful hotel. And that's where we leave it today. Join us next time when we camp at Cathedral Gorge State Park and explore the weird landscape. See you then.